Have you ever had a dream so real it felt more like a memory? For Alara, a travel writer whose life was a mosaic of airport lounges and hotel rooms, one dream was a constant, haunting companion. It wasn't a nightmare, but a nightly rendezvous in 1920s Paris, a world bathed in sepia tones and the soft glow of gas lamps. And in that world, there was a man. His name, she felt, was Julian. He had kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and he would whisper promises of a lifetime together, his voice a gentle melody against the distant sound of a jazz saxophone. Alara would wake up with the scent of old paper and rain-soaked cobblestones still lingering in her senses, her heart aching for a man she'd never met, a love she'd never known. Was she losing her mind? Or was her heart trying to tell her something? The line between her waking world and her dreams began to blur. Each trip she took feeling less like an assignment and more like a search for a ghost. One drizzly afternoon in Paris, a city she knew intimately from her dreams, Alara found herself wandering through the Marché aux Puces de Saint-Ouen, a sprawling flea market of forgotten treasures. She ran her fingers over vintage postcards and antique lace, feeling an unexplainable pull, a sense of déjà vu. And then she saw it, a small, wooden box tied with a faded ribbon. Inside, nestled on a bed of worn velvet, was a stack of letters. The paper was brittle, the ink a deep, faded blue. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she read the first line, penned in elegant, looping script. "My dearest Claire," it began. She didn't need to see the signature at the bottom to know who wrote it. The handwriting was his. It was Julian's. The letters were a torrent of passion and poetry, a declaration of a love so profound it felt sacred. He wrote of their stolen moments by the Seine, of his dream to build a life with her, of a future that seemed just within their grasp. But as Alara read on, a chilling detail emerged. The letters were addressed to a Claire Dubois, not to her. A knot of jealousy and confusion tightened in her stomach. Who was this Claire? And why did she feel so connected to a love story that wasn't her own? The letters were filled with vibrant details of their life in Paris, locations, names of cafes, and shared friends. They became Alara's roadmap, a breadcrumb trail leading her deeper into the past. Her travel blog took a back seat to her obsession. She spent weeks buried in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, her fingers stained with ink and dust, cross-referencing names, addresses, and dates. She felt like a detective piecing together a life from a century ago. The dream man, Julian, became Julian Dubois, a budding artist who lived in a small garret in Montmartre. Claire was his muse, his everything. The trail eventually led her not to the past, but to the present, to a man named Adrien Dubois, the great-grandnephew of Julian. He was an archivist at a small, private museum dedicated to the art of the Annie's Falls, the crazy years of 1920s Paris. Alara's hands trembled as she dialed the museum's number. When he answered, his voice was curt, professional, and laced with a cynicism that felt a million miles away from the romantic whispers in her dreams. Still, she had to see him. She booked an appointment, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The day she met him, the air was thick with anticipation. She walked into the quiet, sun-drenched museum, the scent of old wood and polish filling her lungs. And then she saw him, standing by a display case, silhouetted against a large window. It was him. It was Julian. The same strong jawline, the same intense eyes, the same way a lock of dark hair fell across his forehead. But this man's smile didn't reach his eyes. He was a perfect echo, a flawless copy, yet entirely different. This was Adrien. "You're the writer," he said, his voice pulling her from her trance. It was the same voice, yet it lacked the warmth, the tenderness she knew so well. He looked her over with a dismissive air. "You said on the phone you had something of my great-granduncle's?" Alara's voice was barely a whisper as she opened her bag and carefully placed the wooden box on the table between them. "I found these. His letters. To Claire." Adrien's professional mask cracked. He stared at the box, a flicker of disbelief, then something unreadable, crossing his features. He picked one up, his long fingers tracing the faded script. A heavy silence filled the room. "These letters," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "We always wondered what happened. The family story is that he and Claire were madly in love. He was going to propose." He paused, looking up at Alara. his eyes now mirroring the deep sorrow of the man from her dreams. He wrote these letters, planning to give them to her along with a ring. But he never made it. "What do you mean?" Alara asked, her own heart aching for a tragedy a century old. Adrian's gaze was distant, lost in the story passed down through generations. He died, on his way to meet her. It was October 26, 1928. A sudden, freak accident. A storm blew in out of nowhere. A carriage lost control on the wet street. He died right there on the Pont Neuf, with these letters and a ring in his pocket. They were never delivered. We never knew where they ended up. He looked from the letters to Alara, a dawning understanding in his eyes. "How did you find them? How did you know to find me?" The questions hung in the air, too fantastic to answer with simple logic. How could she explain that she knew the color of his eyes before she ever saw his face? That she knew the sound of his voice before she ever heard him speak? The story felt too insane to tell a cynical stranger, even one who wore the face of her dreams. Days turned into weeks. Alara and Adrian spent more time together, poring over the letters, piecing together Julian's life. With every story Adrian shared, Alara felt the ghost of Julian receding, replaced by the real, complicated man sitting across from her. Adrian's cynicism began to melt away, replaced by a curiosity, a wonder that seemed to be sparked by Alara's impossible story. He saw the conviction in her eyes, the genuine emotion when she spoke of her dreams. He started to believe. Finally, Alara knew what she had to do. They had to visit Julian's grave. It felt like the final chapter, a way to pay respects and perhaps find some closure. They went to the Père Lachaise cemetery on a crisp autumn afternoon. The date on the calendar felt heavy with significance. It was October 26th, exactly 100 years to the day since Julian's death. They found the simple headstone under a large oak tree. Julian Dubois, beloved artist, 1902 to 1928. Alara placed a single white rose on the cool stone, a silent tear tracing a path down her cheek. It was a goodbye to a man she'd loved across time. As she stood there, a strange quiet fell over the cemetery. The sky, which had been clear moments before, suddenly darkened. A cold wind whipped through the trees, and a single, fat drop of rain hit her hand. Then another and another. Within seconds, a sudden, torrential downpour engulfed them, mirroring the storm from a century ago. The rain was cold, shocking. Adrian didn't flinch. He simply reached into his coat and pulled out a large, black umbrella with a distinctive carved wooden handle. He opened it and held it over them, shielding her from the deluge. Alara's breath caught in her throat. It was the umbrella, the exact one from her dream, the one Julian always held over them as they walked through the rain-slicked streets of 1920s Paris. She looked up at Adrian, her eyes wide with disbelief. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face, the first genuine, warm smile she had ever seen from him. It was Julian's smile. He looked down at her, his eyes full of a love that felt ancient and new all at once, and said, "I've been waiting for you." What does this mean? Is Adrian more than just a descendant? Find out what happens next in the second part of our story. If you're captivated by this tale of love that defies time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.